Without her being my daughter, she's tenacious. She gets in there. She takes action. She makes a phone call. She's like, I'll make that call. I'll do this. I'll do that. And I don't have to ask her to do a ton of things. And whether or not she's my daughter or not, she's been a great addition to the agency.
Welcome to the Insurance Refocused podcast, where we're highlighting real agent stories and how they are innovating to respond to the changes and challenges happening in the independent insurance industry. My name's Lindsay, and I can't wait to introduce you to my amazing co-host, who just so happens to be my mom, Carey Wallace.
Uh-oh.
Mom, how you doing today?
Hey, Mom, how you doing?
Lindsay, I got to tell you, man, I'm doing pretty well. I know I'm going to bore a lot of people, but this, for those of you who are following along in Facebook and LinkedIn and all that good stuff, your dad and I bought a boat, and it is really changing our life. So I am doing fantastic. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing good. I'm excited to come and check out this boat. I was just telling our guests while you were joining that you've had it for 4 days and you have used it 4 times. You've at least used it every single day, but you might have used it twice in one day since you bought it. And you and Dad have been like calling me every day and saying like, we went to Paris Island, we went here on the boat, we went there on the boat, we went to Savannah. So I'm very excited to come check it out.
Yeah,
be there soon.
It is definitely a new shiny toy, and we probably need to figure out our rhythm, but, we'll figure it out. Well, I'm also super excited because I get to have one of my very favorite people in the industry on with us today, and she's also being joined by her daughter. So it's not every day that we get to have two mother-daughters on this podcast. So please welcome Teresa and Kaleigh Kitchens. They are part of Sterling Insurance, located in Dallas, Texas, and also in Colorado, if I'm not mistaken. So welcome to the show, ladies.
Hello. We're happy to be here.
We are. Thank you so much for the invite. This is exciting. We were talking yesterday. We were like, oh my goodness, this is going to be awesome.
Yeah. All right. So Kaleigh, tell me, when did you join the industry? Tell me how you got involved with your mom, and let's just start from there.
All right. So it was at the very beginning of 2022. I was in the process of actually selling motorcycles, which was my dream job at the time. I was selling BMW and Triumphs. So I was selling the fun ones. They were beautiful. They were expensive and gorgeous. And I got to play with them, which made it 10 times better. But we had some things happen at the end of 2021 that really made me want to embark on spending more time with family. And I've watched my mother build this business since I grew up, and I never wanted any part of it. And I think when my perspective kind of shifted at the end of 2021, so did my understanding and appreciation for how much work she's put into her company. And I really want to help her build that and want to work alongside her. And so I ended up just dropping everything, pretty much telling her that I was going to quit my job. I don't think she believed me up until the day that I told her I gave up my 2-week notice. I don't think my managers at the time thought I would either. And I didn't think I would actually do it, but I can honestly say now that we're about 1.5 years into me being inside of the industry, I wouldn't look back. I love the versatility and the safety and the relationships that come out of this industry.
I have a very similar entrance to insurance story as you. Well, kind of similar, but I graduated like in the middle of COVID. I graduated, and it's like really bad that I don't actually know this, but Mom, did I graduate in 2021 or 2022?
2021.
Yeah. Okay. So I graduated in 2021, right smack dab in the middle of COVID, with a public health degree, which most people would think, oh, you were like set for life. Like, you had a bunch to do, but it was kind of one of those, like, everyone's so busy that like they were just like trying to like get through. Like they weren't really trying to hire a lot of people, because that takes time to go back and train people. And so I really struggled to like find a job in public health that I like wanted to spend my time doing. And so I, through my mom's connections, found the Big I of North Carolina. And it was one of the best decisions that I think I could have made, because up until then, my mom's worked in insurance for 15 years at that point. And through my entire high school, college, I'm like, there's no way I'm going into insurance. Like, that sounds so boring. Like, it's like watching paint dry. I would never want to do that in my entire life. And now I'm like, this is the best industry. It's the best kept secret in the world. So yeah, I totally relate to you there. Like, no one believed me when I said I was actually going to do it. But like, now that I'm here, it just makes so much sense. And I get to spend time with my mom doing things like this. It's super fun. We don't work together daily. Like, I don't work in her business, but we definitely get to spend time together, like travel and do stuff together, which is really fun.
Well, I have to say, when she came to me in October of 2021, we were sitting out at, what is it called, Kaleigh? Bojangles? We were getting pizza or something like that.
Bojo's.
Where was that in Denver?
Bojo's Pizza. Yeah.
Bojo's. Okay. Great pizza. Great pizza. Awesome. She was definitely working me. I got to say, she took me to a great spot for lunch, and she goes, so I've been thinking. And I was like, no. We don't, because we had, like she mentioned, we had a family situation. I was like, we don't make big decisions during big family changes and, whatever. And I was like, you know what? I said, we'll talk about it later. And that's kind of my gimme. I hate to put it this way. I'm like, we'll talk about it later. It's okay. We'll talk about it later. It's fine. Just, you're fine. You're fine. She keeps bringing it up. And I'm like, we'll talk about it later. It's fine. So then over Christmas, she comes in town. And so I take her we're part of a cluster. So I take her to the cluster central offices, and I'm like, put her in this big glass room, and I bring in people to talk to her about the insurance industry. And I put down a contract in front of her, and I lay out a plan, and I'm like trying to make it as difficult and as complicated as humanly possible, and seemingly scary in my opinion. And she's like, all right, I can do this. And I was like, what? No. And I was like, well, we'll talk about it later. Right. So I'm just like, we'll talk about it later. So then all of a sudden in February, she calls me. I'll never forget. I was in the hotel room in Austin, because we have a location in Austin. And she goes, so I quit my job. I was like, I'm sorry, what? She was like, yeah, so I'm looking up places to get licensed. And she just took it and ran with it. And I think any of us that are in agency ownership love any team member that comes to us and says, this is what we want to do, and I'm going to do it. And, especially if people come to us and say, I want to partner with your agency, but I'm getting into this industry and this is something I want to do. I just want to do it with you. I think is so powerful that I didn't have to pull it out of her. It was her choice. And I think for me, that was a huge telltale of what she was going to be able to bring to the table. Because I've always said she is really, I've made 2 really great hires in my life, and she is one of them. Without her being my daughter, she's tenacious. She gets in there. She takes action. She makes a phone call. She's like, I'll make that call. I'll do this. I'll do that. And I don't have to ask her to do a ton of things. And whether or not she's my daughter or not, she's been a great addition to the agency.
If you're like me and many other small businesses across the country where hiring, training, and retaining employees is a challenge, Agency VA has a solution for you. Agency VA has over 1,000 VAs hired, managed, and trained in the Philippines, Latin America, and India. But did you also know they have 100 licensed agents here in the U.S. that can help you manage your book? I use a VA who lives in the Philippines, and I absolutely love her. The process was simple. We had a consultation where they asked me my needs, goals, and concerns, and matched me with Allie, who has been an absolute game changer for me. Employing Allie through Agency VA has allowed me to focus on my business without worrying about HR concerns, turnover, and monitoring payroll. The best part is the Agency VA team was eager to help my company and also make sure that Allie is getting employee benefits, a competitive salary to help her live a better life in the Philippines. If this is something that you are struggling with inside your agency, please visit agencyva.com/insurance refocused and set up a time to talk to them about your hiring needs. You know, Teresa, lots of people talk about nepotism in our industry. There's no two ways around that. There's a lot of family-run agencies, no question about it. And there's challenges when there's nepotism. There's challenges with what your current staff thinks. But I would also just tell you, that's been my experience with Lindsay. Their generation has this reputation, if you will, that they're not go-getters, that they're more about work-life balance or they're whatever. I got to tell you, she works harder than anyone I know, and she is not afraid to figure it out. Whereas some people want all the instructions handed to them. Well, you and I both know running a small business, you never know what you're doing and you have to figure it out. And that ability to be tenacious and really drive to find an answer is an invaluable quality that, again, it doesn't matter if you're related or not. But talk to me a little bit about what the reception was of your team, of your daughter joining the agency from both of your perspectives. You know what? Actually, I think I'm going to start with Kaleigh first. Like, how do you think that felt, and what did you guys do to make that transition work?
Well, I think it came kind of naturally as far as them knowing exactly who I am. Anybody that knows Teresa has probably heard my name, and I'm thrilled about that. I love being a topic of conversation whenever it comes to involving her. But I think because of that, and most of the team being a part of the business for at least 3 years, they had known kind of a familiarity with it. So the acceptance felt very natural, and it felt very supportive as well. Didn't feel like anybody was going to question my work ethic or was going to roll their eyes at me or really think that I was just going to come in and take everything over, right? And that really helped me in the development of collecting my skills, especially when it came to me asking them questions when I had literally no idea what I was looking at that was in front of me. They were all very open to helping me and to teaching me, and I appreciate that.
What do you think it was like, Teresa? Because that's a big step to listen. The culture of your agency and your team is something I think you fiercely protect. I think we all fiercely protect. Tell me what that was like, knowing that there could be some uncertainty with some family members coming in.
So I think, number one, I think the conversation starts with the fact that I started the agency with my dad, and he was Allstate, and he wanted to go independent. And so, I started with him, but he was not involved in the agency for the first 3 years of the agency's growth. Okay. So, but when we started, since he was with Allstate, I would literally go to him and say, so they say I need this E&O insurance. What is that? Because I didn't even have a license when I opened up the agency. Why in the world my cluster let me sign an agreement with no license? I have no idea. But I went to my dad and I said, so help me. And he said, I don't know. And I said, what do you mean you don't know? And he goes, I don't know. Allstate does all that. I don't do any of that. And I was like, oh, okay. And there was so much of when I first got into the industry that I felt like was just feeling around in the dark. I was asking tons of questions. I was emailing everybody I could, calling everybody I could to get answers. So when Kaleigh and I talked about this transition for her, I said, I don't want that for her. I said, number one, I am not going to be, and we all hear these stories, how somebody gets hired in a job and then they're just told to go wing it, right? Or they go sit with somebody for 2 or 3 days and they're supposed to know everything about the job. And we all know that in insurance, it takes every single day of our lives. I'm almost 21 years into owning this agency, and there's still a ton that I don't know. Every day I tell Kaleigh, I've never seen this before. And if we're honest and vulnerable and we truly communicate with our team, not to mention whether or not they're our family members, I think our team culture gets to where they know that our only goal is to be able to build a better environment for them. And I tell my team all the time, I don't care how much money we make. I do care how much money we make, but it's not the prevalent point in me being able to run this business. My culture is the number one thing. So when we brought Kaleigh in, I said, how can we do this in the best way possible? So I also looked at where the industry was, and we knew we wanted to grow in commercial insurance. So I also knew that we wanted the training to not revolve around me and Kaleigh. I am not a commercial insurance guru. So I know much more about personal than commercial. So we put her through the state auto training program. So that way she could work with people that was not me, that she did not end up accountable for her first year with me. And she was bringing a new conversation into the agency. We were already about 25% commercial. We knew we wanted to grow that piece of our book. So not only did we bring her in, we also put her in a new area, which is very terrifying for all of us. But we also got her the training and the backup and the friendship in somebody that's not me for her to ask questions to, because I didn't want to be that stopgap. We also created something that we call mom hat, daughter hat. And sometimes we're talking and she goes, okay, boss hat. And I'm like, okay, boss hat. And we're working on boss stuff. All of a sudden she's like, okay, mom hat. I go, okay, hold on. I'm going to take off the mom hat, the boss hat. Now we're going to put on the mom hat. And she's like, so this happened the other night. Let's talk about it. And it's really funny because it helps us to know, not blur a lot of lines, right? Because sometimes I think the confusion when you work with family is when you're a family and when you are coworkers. And I think that when we set those boundaries down, and I think our team has seen those boundaries. We are a virtual agency. Kaleigh works out of Denver, Colorado. I am in Dallas, Texas. We have agency team members in Austin, Texas. We've had agency team members in LA. We have them in the Philippines. We are on chat just like just like this, a Zoom call all day long. So that way they can ask questions. So they get to know her. They get to see her working. They get to see that I'm not handing her anything. She has to earn it. She's not walking in with, the goose that laid the golden egg. She is earning it. In fact, I paid her, unfortunately, probably towards the bottom end of where most people come into this industry, because I wanted her hungry and I wanted her to say that she wanted more. And with that, she's done that. She stepped up. She's really done a great job with that. But we also set that, we kept the culture of the agency the same. I think when people bring in the nepotism conversation, it's also that the rules apply to certain people and not to the nepotism dynamic. And I think if we say, no matter what, this is our culture, we're a team, this person might be my relative, but the reality is they are still going to have to earn theirs. They're still going to have to be a team member and they get the same rights and privileges as everybody else. I think that's when the nepotism conversation is diminished. I think it's whenever it becomes too prevalent and they get certain gifts that other people don't get, that it really becomes a challenge with the team. But we did not do that. And just being fully transparent with the team was a really big part of making this so successful.
Hey guys, if you're looking to improve your bottom line, allow your team to operate efficiently, and really improve that customer retention, I believe you should check out Ascend. Ascend is the all-in-one insurance payment solution. They are focused on streamlining your invoicing, premium financing, accounting, and they'll even make your carrier payables for you. They are taking agency bill and making it as easy as direct bill. That is a game changer. They integrate with all of the major AMS players, and here's the best part. It's free. There is no subscription, no cost to you. They allow your customers to pay how they want. If you are interested in improving your efficiency, go visit ascend.com/insurance refocused and let them know that we sent you. Yeah, I got to tell you, the mom hat, boss hat, coworker hat, partner hat. For us, it would be the partner hat versus the mom hat. It's changed a little bit of our family dynamic. I don't know if you guys have had this, but my husband, Lindsay is on her own. She does not live with us. So my husband and I connect with her a lot. And here's the deal. Lindsay connected with me even when she was in college. I talked to her a lot. And, we've always been close. This has definitely kept us closer and given us something to work on. But my husband recently was like, listen, I get it. You guys talk all the time, but you are like talking about the personal stuff and the work stuff, and I'm getting absolutely nothing. Can you share our daughter with us a little bit? Which is kind of funny. So, we haven't figured out the coworker or partner hat and mom hat separation, at least he's feeling like it's a little different, right? It's kind of funny.
I agree. Kaleigh was just in town last week, and for work, we specifically flew her in for some specific work things, and we flew her into Dallas. And it's really funny. My husband works like 10 minutes from there, and it's her stepfather. And it's just really funny because he was like, so she gets in at 5:10. I'm getting off work. You don't want to fight with traffic. He's like, so I'll pick her up. And he goes, just to let you know, I get the first Kaleigh hug. And I was like, no. Do not hug her because I get the first Kaleigh hug. And we had this whole discussion about who got the first Kaleigh hug. And he was so excited and proud because he was going to get the first Kaleigh hug because he was going to pick her up from the airport. So we fight over her a little bit. But, I try to be loving because I do get a lot of good access to her.
So I do want to talk about the personal lines, commercial lines, and the fact that you've carved something out, which I think is really important. And I also know you guys are actively looking to acquire in order to grow the agency. So how did Kaleigh coming into the agency fit with that overall plan? And lots of people say they want to acquire an agency, and it's not the easiest thing in the world to do, number one. And it's certainly not easy if you don't have a plan. So I'd love to just give our listeners a view into what that planning might look like.
Yeah. So Kaleigh just finished the first year with the state auto training program. And so with that, she got her CLCS, she got some wonderful certifications, lots of good knowledge, wrote a ton of really good business, made some wonderful relationships. And with that, we had acquired an agency back in 2020. I put it off a little bit. We were supposed to close in March of 2020. That's right when COVID hit, literally. We decided to put it off a little bit. So we actually closed in October. But with that was a very good experience. It has worked really, really well for us. And it was with my first acquisition, I think the banking process and all that was, of course, new and interesting. Looking at another agency from a different perspective taught me what people would look at from my agency if I ever chose to sell. But then on the other side of it, I loved the fact that I was able to bring in 2 new team members with that acquisition. They knew the clients. It was a beautiful acquisition for us. I'm not going to say it was 100% smooth, but it's definitely been a beautiful acquisition for us. With that, now we're 3 years in, and having Kaleigh gone through the commercial process, I started thinking through, well, is it time for us to also acquire? But I didn't want to take Kaleigh out of outside sales. She really loves it. It's something she does really well. I think she really enjoys the commercial piece. She does really help out on the personal lines as well as the commercial here and there. She didn't do a ton of it because with State Auto, you have to sign an agreement, a covenant that they don't do other things in the agency. So we tried very hard to make sure that we did not cross that line. But she has always jumped into anything that we brought her to the table for. So as we were looking around, I did look at 2 other agencies this year that had more of a personal commercial split. I was thinking it's not a big deal, maybe. And at that point, we had another commercial lines account manager. And I was thinking, this other commercial lines account manager can just handle this, a little bit of a growth in the commercial, not that big of a deal. And then that commercial lines account manager that we had just ended up not really working out for us in that space. So I ended up, we said goodbye, and that was great. And so in that process, though, over Memorial Day weekend, this other acquisition opportunity came in, and I was like, well, we'll see what'll happen. And it ends up that it's a full commercial lines book, no personal lines, and it's something that would take almost a person a little bit less than full time to be able to really manage. And so I was like, okay, well, what are we going to do? And I thought, well, Kaleigh has not done the service side of things. She loves the outside sales things. This is going to take her 3/4 of her time. She can still be out and about building relationships 1/4 of the time, take one day a week, maybe 2 occasionally, still be able to build outside relationships, still go to her networking and her other activities that she does. But then she can take that over. And I really started thinking about the fact that we give her such a deeper view and knowledge about commercial insurance. Because like I said, we don't have a huge commercial insurance platform right now. So it would really make her that commercial insurance deeper, knowledgeable guru, right, in the agency. So I started talking to her about that, and we started talking. So then when we started having conversations with the current owner, I was like, Kaleigh, I'm going to I'm gonna have this conversation with you, be on the call. So we would call Kaleigh, and then we would call the other owner, and then she's been in every single step of this process. And I've said, okay, this is what we look at, this is what we're doing, these are the questions, this is what we're, and I would say, this is what you would be expected to do if you take over this book, right? So she is, now that she's done with the commercial state auto program, she's going to be out and about doing a little bit of sales, but she's going to be digging deeper into these policies. But what we're doing is creating a hybrid approach with the current owner to be able to have a soft handoff to where Kaleigh becomes the primary, but this other owner is going to stick around for a little bit. So that empowers Kaleigh to learn. We're setting up, again, virtual appointments every single week for them to be able to connect at least for the first 3 months. And then we're hoping to go to every 2 weeks to once a month. And gradually phase that current owner out. But Kaleigh will not be unsupported in this transition. And with that, then she's really going to get her hands on all these policies. She's going to learn just a ton. She's already got a lot of knowledge under her belt. But we've involved her in those conversations about, what does this book look like? What is it going to take to run it? How much time does this person use? We've even created a plan moving forward on how to make it to where this person kind of supervises her, and then she does all the day-to-day work. So that way the clients get to know Kaleigh, but the other owner is still going to stick around, going to have an email on our platform, a phone number on our platform. That way this person can still be delegating work to Kaleigh, but the key is they get to know Kaleigh in that process. So it'll be a soft handoff. So I think that being a part of that and pushing and pulling it with Kaleigh and with the current owner is what hopefully will make this a really super successful endeavor for the clients and for Kaleigh and for the current owner.
Kaleigh, what do you think like the most surprising part of that entire, or what has been just really cool about doing that? Like, what's been your favorite part?
I think
of the entire process.
It's got to be seeing how different people run their agencies. I mean, obviously we are virtual, but I know of other agencies that are still come in every day, still have a typical setup for an office. And then I get to see the woman who we're taking the acquisition from, who still works off of an Excel spreadsheet. And to see that a company or an agency itself can still sufficiently run off of an Excel spreadsheet, I think is going to be really interesting to dive into, and to really connect with her clients themselves and to build off of that relationship. I get to expand their protection connection. Those are the two things I think I'm really looking forward to most with this acquisition.
I got to tell you, because, again, a lot of people do not think that this industry is real interesting, but you're getting to see a perspective that some people never get to see. Like that's the cool part. You've got to see your mom watching from afar. You've got to see how she runs her agency, but then getting a whole different perspective really is kind of a unique thing. There's not a lot of people. So that's pretty unique. And, it's pretty special, and I'm glad that you guys get to do this together. I will tell you that. I can't tell you the number of people that reach out and say, how cool is it that you get to do this with your daughter? And whenever they see a podcast or they see whatever, and most people actually think Lindsay and I work together in the same company. They think she's part of Agency Focus, which, hey man, I'm not putting out there that that's not eventually a possibility for Lindsay. We don't know yet, but I did the same thing though, Teresa. I made sure Lindsay was getting introduced to this industry by more than just me. That's part of why even to do this podcast is because she gets to talk to a whole bunch of people, ask her own questions. She's worked for INC. She now works for a network, and she's surrounded by incredibly bright people that can give her a perspective that I can't do that. Mm-hmm. And I think it's really cool that you've been able to give Kaleigh a perspective that many people who are inside their family agency may or may not be able to get that. So it's pretty rewarding to be able to do it. I mean, I've often said, I don't care if anybody listens to our podcast. I just like that we get to spend time together and be able to do this together, which is kind of cool. I truly do actually care if people listen to our podcast, but that is the best part, right? So
It is.
So I do want to.
It is. And, and I've told her everywhere, because I try to take her places, introduce her to people. Like I said, she was just in Dallas last week. We had a cluster meeting with our cluster. And I was like, hey, have you met Kaleigh? Hey, have you met Kaleigh? Not only because I think she's amazing, because I do, but at the same point, I want her to have other people that she can call if something goes wrong. I always say, if I'm hit by a bus tomorrow, what would happen? And I think there's so many agency owners out there that don't have a perpetuation plan. And I'm not going to sit here, and I told Kaleigh even last week, I told her, I said, if you don't want to do this, there is nothing that it will not impact our life at all. It will not impact our relationship if you choose to leave the insurance industry. And I tell her that probably way too often, but I don't want her to feel like if I go out there and if we're acquiring and if I teach her all these things, and if she honestly doesn't enjoy it, I would never hold her hostage. And I think the nepotism conversation also comes in sometimes when people feel like they're trapped. Oh, I can't let my dad down. I can't let my mom down. I can't let my kid down. I can't let whatever down, right? Uncle, whatever. And I think that if we remove that burden from that conversation, we need to make sure that they have other resources. If she chooses to go to work for a carrier, if she chooses to go work for an organization, she's free to do that with a lot of notice. But I'm just kidding. But anyway, but I would love her. I want her to find her own voice, whatever she chooses to do. And I think that's what every parent wants for their child. Yes, I want her to love the insurance industry as much as I've come to love the insurance industry. But if she doesn't, I want her most and foremost to be happy. And if she is in a job and in an industry that she hates because of the fact that I'm her mom, that's really just not going to work for me. And, with that, we have to want them to meet other people. If people say, hey, let's go on out and have a happy hour after a meeting, I'm like, let's go, let's talk, let's do this, right? I'm like, let's talk about how are you doing business? Let's talk about what systems you use. And then we come back and sometimes I'm like, hey, we're going to do a demo on this system. Do you want to sit in on it? We just moved over to Agency Zoom for our CRM. I'm like, come join this meeting. But I make that available for most of my team members too, not just Kaleigh. And I think with her having the other people to talk to, it lets her know that it's not just me and her in this, that it's her career. It's not just her being with me in my career. And I think that that's just super important for us to be able to let our family know if they are in the industry.
Yeah, I would agree with you 100%. Well, I know your family went through an incredibly tragic loss, and I'm glad that something good came out of that. I'm really glad that it brought you two closer together. You're now working together. I think of you all the time because I cannot imagine what that's like for either one of you. And I love that you came on here and shared your story. And I got to say, I super love a mother-daughter duo in the industry. I think that there's not enough of us. So for those for those people out there that are thinking about doing it, I love that you've shared the approach that you used, that that your daughter's watched you from afar and been able to follow in your footsteps in her own way, not the exact footsteps, but find her own way with you as a guide. So thank you both so very much for coming on the podcast. If someone wants to reach out to you, Teresa, I think they know, but let's give them how they could go about doing that. And then Kaleigh, I'd love for you to do that as well, because here's the deal. There is a new generation in our industry, and I would love for those people to connect as much as possible. And so anyway, Teresa, how can people reach out to you if they'd like to find you?
Yeah, so there's multiple different ways. You can always just look me up at sterlinginsnow.com. That's our Sterling Insurance Group in Dallas, Texas, technically Plano, but look us up there. I'm also on Facebook, Teresa Kitchens. I am in lots of different groups. You can also look me up on LinkedIn. And then, of course, there is the Power Women in Insurance podcast, where we talk to women all over the country. And we've actually been chronicling Kaleigh's journey the last 18 months in the industry. What were her fears in the beginning? What has she been able to overcome? What has she been able to accomplish? And, what is now looking back, what does she wish she did differently? And we go through this whole, what is it like to work with your mom? And, we kind of chronicle all that too. So however people want to reach on out, Kaleigh and I are open books, probably a little bit too much some days, but we are always here to help anybody in their insurance journey with any questions. And if we don't know the answers, we go out of our way to make sure we connect people with people that do know the answers to what their questions may be.
Awesome. All right, Kaleigh, how can we reach you? If there's people out there that are just starting in the industry and they love the energy that they feel when you talk about it, I got to tell you, your face lights up when you talk about working with your mom, which is a pretty cool thing. So if they want to reach out to you, how can they reach you?
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I always love to chat with people about the industry. I mean, I think it's going to be changing over time, and you're right. There's a new face and a new generation entering it, and might as well get out there and connect with one another. But LinkedIn is always a great place. Kaleigh is spelled a little bit differently. Thank you, Teresa. It is Kaleigh. Otherwise, last name is Kitchens, or else my email is going to be that first name and then at sterlinginsnow.com as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having us on.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for tuning in to the Insurance Refocused podcast. If you enjoyed the episode, please be sure to hit subscribe and leave us a review so you'll never miss us. Want to learn more about how Agency Focus can help you grow your agency? Head to agency-focus.com or email Carey directly at carey@agency-focus.com. If you need to get in touch with me, feel free to shoot me an email at lindsay@agency-focus.com. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you next week.